Welcome once again to Reflections and to Andrew White. We've got a special guest, Chief Rabbi of Jerusalem, and we've discovered apparently you're Chief Rabbi in Norway.
Yes,
Wow.
amongst many other things. Yes.
Why Norway?
Why Norway? Well, I was born in Denmark. My family goes back 350 years in Denmark, and for 7 generations have been chief rabbis in Denmark. And I thought after I studied in Jerusalem that I would give something back to the communities there where I grew up. But the position in Denmark was taken as chief rabbi by my father, my late father, blessed be his memory. And there was also a second rabbi there. And in Norway, where the community had been totally destroyed by the Nazis, as opposed to the other communities in the Nordic countries, they needed somebody to revive the community. So I agreed to come to Norway for a period, and I was stuck after that. Although there today are other rabbis there, I still have the title of chief rabbi. I'm the head of the religious courts in all the Nordic countries, but this is a hobby of mine. My main focus and work is in Jerusalem and the Middle East. I'm also the rabbi of a big congregation in Jerusalem, and this is the main focus of my work.
Yeah. How do you get to know Andrew?
We got to know each other in the end of the 90s, and Andrew was up to a lot of mischief, trying to make peace between people. And I was up to the same kind of mischief. And this connection, we met each other. And I had this special idea, which was something which I think I was the first to promote in the world. Not only that religious people can support peace, but there can be such a thing as religious peace. And we decided, I together with my Palestinian colleague, that we wanted to make a religious peace summit. And we invited in, I was, for my sins, I have a lot of sins, which I have to atone for. And for these sins which I had to atone for, I was dragged into politics. And I was in the Israeli parliament and in the Israeli government as a cabinet minister. And at the time, we decided, also my Palestinian colleague, who was also a Muslim cleric, that we decided to go with all the leading Christian leaders and Muslim leaders and Jewish leaders, including the chief rabbi and others, to go and have a religious peace summit in the midst of the Intifada, which was a lot of bloodshed and bombs going off every day in buses, and also Israel going in to Judea and Samaria. And it was the worst time to do such a thing. And but we decided to do it in any case. And Andrew was extremely helpful. He was working in Baghdad at the time, but he was also working very closely together with the then Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Carey, and and they got together that the Egyptians were willing to host this. So we made the summit meeting in Alexandria
Alexandria.
in January 2002, and since then we had a very, very successful summit meeting with all the leaders who signed the first document on religious peace in the world, which has been copy pasted many places and many times since, and been useful to save hundreds of thousands of lives around the world. And we have continued that work since then. And it was then endorsed by people all over the world, including the Pope and many others. And we went from Alexandria to Cairo. It was endorsed by the then President Mubarak and by the Israeli Prime Minister at that time, Ariel Sharon, and by the Palestinians, and everybody endorsed it. But it was at the peak of the Intifada, and there were also those who attacked it. The very extreme attacked it. So we're working now to get them on board also.
Everybody said we would never be able to do it.
Yes.
And we did.
Yes.
But one of the incredible things about Rabbi Melchior is the Melchior family. He mentioned his father, who was chief rabbi of Denmark, Benk Melchior. But even before that, his grandfather and his great-grandfather were all chief rabbis of Denmark. And we know what an incredible role that Denmark had in the Holocaust.
Denmark was the only country where the whole population stood up for the Jews. Not individuals, but the whole population to save its Jews. And that's very, very unique. And it teaches us that you can choose good. It's possible.
Well,
And
it's
this
remarkable, especially when one thinks of what's happening in Great Britain at the moment. There's a lot of hatred towards the Jews. Why has this happened?
Anti-Semitism is increasing.
Yes. Well, I don't think all criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism and is hatred. I think you're allowed to criticize, but you always have to look at, even when you criticize out of love, and not only always criticize. I remember one of the foreign ministers I met. He says, you have to accept that we as friends can criticize. I said, yes, but you as friends also have to show friendship.
Yes, indeed.
And let's see some of that, caring, It's not if you just criticize, then you're not a very good friend.
But you've got to, from the Christian point of view, love your enemies. And Andrew, loves many Muslims and many Jews, many Christians. Now that's easy to say that, but it's so difficult. I mean, when you've got Islam is not getting a good press at the moment.
Right.
When a nation, or in this case, a religion, is out to kill every Jew it sees, I mean, how do you cope with that?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's Islam. I can tell you, for example, on the 7th of October, when we had the devastating massacre from Gaza into Israel, where they tried to kill and to rape and to take hostages as many as possible, and was carefully prepared among civilians, not military. They wanted to do. they called on all the Muslims in Israel, in East Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria on the West Bank. They called on all of them to join. They called it the Al-Aqsa flood. And they had good reason to believe that they would join this on that day. And we have built a very strong coalition with all the Muslim leaders. And the Muslim leaders called me and said, we're not going to abandon you. And they went out to all the mosques and they wrote religious decisions called fatwa. And they said what the Hamas did, what Sinwar did on the 7th of October, and all these people and all what they did and taking hostages, this was beastly. This is not Islam. This is against the belief of Islam. And there was not one incident in Israel, amongst the millions of Muslims living in Israel and in East Jerusalem, where there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Muslims, and also in most of Judea and Samaria, no incidents. And this has been also true for a large part since then. So it's a complex picture. And they're good guys, and they're what Andrew calls bad guys. And we need to work so that the world will be a better world. And the world can only be a better world if we also work with the bad guys and make them good guys. And we also have bad guys amongst ourselves, amongst the Jews. We have people who also say, "Oh, we need to kill and as revenge," and this is. It's not the majority of the Jews who say that, but there are some who say that who are also on pretty high positions, and this is blown up, of course, also in the British press and so on when they say this, and this is not Judaism. It doesn't represent authentic Judaism, and we need to go out clearly and say that, and we need to work with them also to have them moderate their statements and not to distort what Judaism stands for. And there are Christians like that also, who say just get rid of all the Muslims, and this is not the future of the world. Listen, we are between the river and the sea. There are two peoples living there, and just as I believe with my full heart that it's not a coincidence that God the Almighty has let us come back to the Holy Land after so many years of exile. I believe, it's a personal belief, doesn't commit anybody else than myself, but I believe that this is a fulfillment of the prophecies of our prophets, that we've come back to this land. But I can't say that God the Almighty is fulfilling all the prophecies, and we've come back from all the corners of the earth to our land, and we have a very close to a majority of the Jews in the world now living in the land, and the land is flourishing and doing well, but at the same time say that it's a divine mistake that there's another people also living there. I don't believe that this is a divine mistake, and there is another people living there, so we need to work it out together. I think this is a divine challenge, and if we do that, I think this will be a glorification of God's name in the world. And there's nothing else, there's nothing more important than that. So this is what we're trying to do.
And it's a sign of great hope.
and it will happen. We are very much in the verge of making that happen.
Now, the Knesset is a tough place to be. Politics is a tough place to be.
Yeah,
and it doesn't seem to be the answer for any country. There's something beyond politics that you've hinted at there that will change things.
well, I already atoned for my sins, so I'm not in the Knesset today, but I'm working very hard. And I think that what I'm doing today has more influence than all the Knesset members and most of the cabinet ministers. But what we're doing is quiet. We work under the radar. It's very seldom that I give interviews. This is one of the very few interviews which I give, and but it's only because
So this is
I
a
couldn't
very
say
promising one.
I couldn't say no to when my great friend Canon Andrew White said that I had to speak to you. I never say no to Andrew, so this is why I'm giving this short interview. But I don't otherwise give interviews, and we don't take credit. I don't talk about our work because I believe that the blessing is what is hidden away from public eye, and every time we succeed in saving lives and solving problems, and that we do every day, then we give credit to somebody else. They see credit and they want and that's fine.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out here, Rabbi, and we appreciate the need for prayer. And I think you've given us quite a lot of things there to pray for.
We need very much prayer, more involvement, more caring about us. I know that your listeners care about us. I mean, that is part of it, but more intense prayer, and we need prayer for peace. Peace is the most important. Shalom. Shalom is how we greet each other, and shalom is peace, and shalom is also in Hebrew and in Arabic, by the way, the name of God, and therefore, before in the morning, before we say our morning prayers, we don't say shalom to each other, because first we have to, before we greet each other, we first greet the God the Almighty, and then we say shalom to each other. And now I say shalom also to you.
And to you, and bless you again for coming along today and visiting Andrew.
I can't come to London, although he lives very far from where I am. I can't come to London without giving Andrew a hug.
One of the greatest things I saw happen in Denmark was when all the Christians started being killed by the Muslims in Iraq and around the Middle East. And we met together and we said, we need to get a fatwa, an Islamic injunction. And there in Denmark, with Rabbi Melchior's father and him, we actually sat down and wrote a fatwa. And everybody said it will never work. From that day, it worked. For almost a year, no Christian was killed by a Muslim.
That's great. And as we think and pray about the situation, boy, is there a time to do it, and it's now. I've got one quickie to ask you. We've got two strong men at the center of this, probably more, but we're thinking of Donald Trump, we're thinking of Netanyahu, who doesn't have the best of press often. Is it helpful, or does it hinder you in your work, having these two strong guys?
Well, the problem is I mean, this is a very political question. We are more value-based. This is why we have a religious piece. These people work out from interests, and we work out from values. But we know the world of interests also. That's why we do insider mediation. We know the world of interest, and we work with the political leaders because we know that we need the values to be translated into political action. So, you know, Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize, which is given out in Norway.
Yes,
So,
interesting.
That's an
Which is your country.
And Netanyahu, he wrote a letter of recommendation that he should get it. So the best recommendation he can do, more than a letter of recommendation, is to make peace. So that is much more powerful than the letter he sends to the Nobel Peace Committee in Oslo, is to make peace. In the meantime, to take care that there will be no more bloodshed now in Gaza, and there are some very positive signals in these hours going on, and we have sources which are not from the media. We're getting in positive signals, and we need this to be not only the end of this war, but to be the end of the wars. It doesn't make sense. It really, really doesn't make sense. And we need there to be peace and security and future and hope for our children, our grandchildren. But in order for that to happen, there also has to be a hope and a future for our neighbors. I mean, I live in a small town, a small village. It's a little bigger than this village. This village where Andrew lives. It's called Jerusalem, and we have about a million people living in this small village, and we have to get along with each other. 40% of the population there are Palestinian Arabs. And if we have to look over our shoulder the whole time to see that we're enemies and we can get stabbed and killed and so on, and we're working together, and the reality is much better than our image, and when we go to a hospital, like my wife worked for many years in the big religious hospital of Jerusalem called Shaarei Tzedek. And those who were cleaning the floors, and those who were their caretakers, and those who were surgeons, and those who were doctors, and those who were nurses, at least 40-50% of them were Palestinian Arabs. And you can't, if they were not a part, and if you have to suspect everyone is a terrorist and so on, if we have animosity the whole time, Israel's capital would collapse, wouldn't exist. So that's it. We're creating an everyday life, and we need to translate also this so that we can end the conflict. And this is possible. It's really possible, and that's the good news.
There we are. It's good to finish on good news. We thank you again for your time. Sorry to throw you a curveball at the end, but it's been a revelation what you said.
Thank you.
Further things.
I was just to tell you what you hear in all the other news, then you didn't need to talk to me.
Indeed. Thank you, both of you.